okay, and how important that word is, and how important it is to understand context and its influence on the scriptures. Okay, context is very important. Now, the lady that I was talking with last night, I asked her that question. I asked her, she told me that it is a command forever, and she points to this verse. She says that it is a command forever throughout your generations. And so I asked her the question, does the word forever, when it appears in the scriptures, always means forever as in for eternity? And she wouldn't answer the question, and she kept coming with other stuff, and I wouldn't let up. I kept asking her to answer the question, and finally she did, and she said yes, it always means forever as in eternity. And so I showed her other passages where the word is used and asked her, in these passages, does it mean forever as in eternity? No, she never answered. But we're going to go to some of those passages today. There are several passages. We're going to go to a few of them today. Okay, but what I'm going to show you is that forever does not always mean for all eternity. Okay, I see people who make these videos about Tzitzit, and they point to that word saying that it is a command forever. However, if you study the text contextually and with scriptural understanding, you will soon find out that forever there does not mean forever as in for eternity. Okay, so we're going to let the scriptures reveal this as we go through our study today. So when somebody comes along telling you that you must wear tzitzit, or you are not in covenant, the first question you ask is, according to the scriptures, does the word forever, as used in that command, does it mean that it is a command for all eternity? And is the word forever, when it's used in the scriptures, is it always used to mean for all eternity? Okay, and so you ask that question, and then based upon their response, we go from there, and we're going to continue. We're going to go to the scriptures to seek to get an answer to that particular question. There are several questions that needs to be asked of this text if we're going to gain scriptural contextual understanding. And we're definitely going to be looking at those questions. Okay, so verse 38 says, speak to the children of Yasharal, and you shall say to them to make tzitzit on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue cord in the tzitzit of the corners. Now the blue, remember, the very word tzitzit means remembrance, okay, or a reminder. Okay, so every time you look at tzitzit or you look at the tassels, what you're looking at is a reminder. Okay, that's the definition of the thing. When you look at it, it means reminder. Okay, so the next question we must ask is, a reminder of what? Okay, a reminder of what? And here the first clue is this. It tells us that they should put a blue cord in the corner of the tzitzit. And what is the purpose of the blue cord? As we study the scriptures, we find that the purpose of the blue is the color of Yah, the color of his deity. Okay, and so when the people look at the blue, it reminds them of Yahuah. Okay, so as we study this, we're going to find that the purpose of tzitzit was, number one, to remind the people of Yahuah, and number two, the purpose of the fringes, the blue, is to remind them of Yahuah, and the fringes were to remind them of his instructions, okay, or of his Torah. Okay, so the purpose of tzitzit was to remind the people of Yahuah, and 2, to remind them of his instructions. How many of us know that we can be reminded of Yahuah but yet forget his instructions? We can be reminded of Yahuah but yet forget his instructions. That is why he says of Yasharal, he says, they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And so they have a head knowledge of him. They are reminded of him on one level, but then on a deeper level, they have no regard for him. Okay, and so you can be reminded of Yah but still forget his instructions. Okay, so they were reminded of him, so they honor him with their lips, but their hearts were far from him, because they're reminded of him but they had no remembrance of his instructions. Okay, so the purpose of Tzitzit was to remind them of Yah and to remind them of his instructions, to remind them of his Torah. Now, last week, in our study last week, we looked at the fact that Torah points to Yahusha, the Messiah. When you look up the very word Torah, okay, and when I say look up, I mean that when you spell the word out, because in Hebrew, we've discussed this before concerning the name, but when you study the word Torah, remember in Hebrew, a letter is a picture. So in English, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. But you've heard me say this before, that if in English, if that is true in English, that a picture is worth 1,000 words, then in Hebrew, a picture must be worth 1,000,000 words. Now, why is that? Because letters in Hebrew, in the Hebrew language, are not mere letters as we see them in English, but they are pictures. Okay, that is why it is so important not to misrepresent the name of Yahuah. Because if we misrepresent the name of Yahuah, what we're doing is we are changing the picture. And if we change the picture, we are changing the message. Okay, so the word Torah, when we take, for example, the word Torah and we write it down on a piece of paper, the letter Ta has a meaning. Okay, the letter Wa has a meaning, the letter Rash has a meaning, the letter Ayan has a meaning, and the letter He has a meaning. Now, when you take those definitions coming from those letters and you put them together, it points to Yahusha being impaled on the stake. Okay, we covered that last week, and hopefully somebody wrote it down. I have it in my notes. It's not something I've done the study, but it's not something that I've memorized, so I don't remember off the top of my head to give you the exact definitions and how they point to Yahusha. But the very word Torah, you see, just like Tzitzit means remembrance or reminder, the very word Torah speaks Yahusha. Okay, so what that tells us is that even for those people who are teaching that there is no Mashiach, okay, there is no Messiah, and they simply toss the renewed covenant in the trash, and they call themselves teaching Torah, they are going against Torah, because the very word Torah speaks Mashiach. You see? But that is what happens when we fail to acknowledge context. Okay, thank you, Akot. It would be nice if you can type it here, because I would have to go pull up my notes. But if you could type it, that would be greatly appreciated, you know, for anybody that wasn't here last week and wanted to see it. But Torah speaks expressly of Yahusha. The very word speaks expressly of Yahusha and his work. Okay, I understand. Thank you anyhow. Thank you. Yeah, so even the very word speak expressly of Yahusha, just like the word Tzitzit speaks of remembrance. Shabbat Shalom, man of Yah. Welcome. So just as the very word Tzitzit speaks reminder. So when you look at a Tzitzit, what you're looking at literally is a reminder. Okay? You are looking at the word remember. And when you look at the word remember, you must ask the question, remember what? And that question is answered by looking at Tzitzit. He tells them then to put a string of blue in the corners of the tassels, and that blue is a reminder of Yahuah. Blue is the color of Yahuah. Okay, the priest, when you study Torah, you will find that the priest had a piece of blue on his garment, on his chest. Okay, his heart, and what that blue symbolizes, covering his chest, is that his heart was covered by Yahuah. Okay, and so blue is symbolic of Yahuah, and so they were told to put a string of blue in the corners of Tzitzit, and that was a reminder of Yahuah. Then there were to be fringes on Tzitzit, and those fringes were to serve as a reminder of his instructions. Okay, now we discussed to this point, we asked the question, does forever, or throughout all your generations, does it always mean for eternity when used in the scriptures? And the answer to that was, as our quote pointed out, no. Its definition is governed by context, and that's the case with everything in the scriptures. Okay, our understanding of the scriptures is governed by context. And you know, somebody told me this week that what I was having a conversation with them concerning something. Don't remember what it was, but they were basically proclaiming some man-made ritual, some man-made tradition,